Mr. Watts, why did you kill your wife and 2 children?
Whether about having putting the house up for sale and talking about actually proceeding with the separation.
The girls are still in the truck.
Okay. Did they ask you what you were doing, taking mommy out, or?
Yeah, I don't remember what I told them, but they did ask that.
What they say specifically?
It was more of like, what are you doing to mommy?
Okay.
The world was startled by the case of a father of 2 who had smothered his girls and strangled his pregnant wife before disposing of their bodies in an oil tank. American oil field operator Christopher Lee Watts, born May 16, 1985, killed his pregnant wife Shanann, 34 years old, by strangling her, and their 2 children, Celeste, 3 years old, and Bella, 4 years old, by suffocating them in the early hours of August 13, 2018, in Frederick, Colorado. In close proximity to an oil storage facility, he buried Shanann in a shallow grave and disposed of his children's bodies in crude oil tanks. Watts first maintained he was innocent of any involvement in his family's abduction, but on August 15, he was taken into custody after admitting to the murder of Shanann during a police interview. Subsequently, he later admitted to killing his kids. As part of a plea agreement, Watts admitted guilt to several counts of first-degree murder on November 6, 2018, when the death penalty, which Colorado repealed in 2020, was taken out of the equation for sentence. He received 5 life sentences without the chance of release, 3 of which were to be served consecutively. North Carolina was home to both Christopher Lee Watts and Shanann Catherine Rizuke, January 10, 1984, August 13, 2018. Christopher was from Spring Lake and Shanann was from Aberdeen. They got married on November 3, 2012, in Mecklenburg County after meeting in 2010. Bella Marie Watts, December 17, 2013, August 13, 2018, and Celeste Catherine Watts, July 17, 2015, August 13, 2018, were the couple's 2 kids. Shanann was 15 weeks along with her unborn son, Nico, at the time of her death. The Watts family owned a 5-bedroom house in Frederick, Colorado, located at 2825 Saratoga Trail, which they bought in 2013. In 2015, the family filed for bankruptcy, while Shanann worked from home selling a product called Thrive for a multi-level marketing organization called Level. Christopher was employed by Anadarko Petroleum. On Monday, August 13, 2018, at around 1:48 a.m., Shanann was taken home by her friend and colleague Nicole Utuft Atkinson after she returned from a business trip to Arizona. Chris Watts had spent the weekend at home with their girls. Later that day, Atkinson became concerned when Shanann skipped an appointment for obstetrics and gynecology and did not reply her text messages, so he reported Shanann and the girls missing. At approximately 12:10 p.m., Atkinson went to the Watts residence after Shanann missed a business meeting. Atkinson phoned the Frederick Police Department and informed Christopher, who was at work, after the doorbell and knocks went unanswered. At about 1:40 p.m., a Frederick police officer showed up to perform a welfare check. Christopher granted the police officer permission to search the home during the welfare check, and the family dog was found unharmed, but neither Shanann nor the daughters were located. Shanann's pocketbook, which held the kids' medication and her keys, was found by the searchers. Later, in the family home, her phone was found in between the couch cushions. Her automobile was in the garage, still holding the children's car seats. On the bedside table was Shanann's wedding ring. The following day, the Colorado Bureau of Inquiry (CBI) and the FBI joined the inquiry. Watts first admitted to the police that he did not know where his family may be and that he had not seen his wife since he went for work at 5:15 a.m. the day before. He conducted interviews with people outside the home, begging them to let his wife and daughters come back. During the conversation, there were sounds of search dogs being led by investigators on the premises. All was not well in the Watts household. Shanann and Chris's relationship was struggling, and the pair had spent 6 weeks apart after she found out she was pregnant with their 3rd child just months earlier. By the end of June, Chris was in a new relationship. He was having an affair with a coworker, Nicole Kessinger. She said Chris had told her he was in the process of separating from his wife. By July, Shanann began to question her husband's behavior, claiming he was being distant. By August 8, Shanann was telling friends that Chris wanted a divorce, while she didn't. She said he had told her he was scared to death about the baby on the way, saying he didn't want it. She added he had changed toward her, that he was cold and physically distant. On August 9, Shanann left for a work trip in Arizona. She sent a friend a draft of a letter she was writing to Chris about their relationship, saying how much she had missed him while they were apart and how painful it had been for her. But while she was away, Chris had reportedly hired a babysitter for Bella and Celeste and took his new love interest out. 2 days after Shanann had been reported missing, Nicole Kessinger told police about her affair with Chris after seeing him on the news and realizing he had lied about the state of his marriage and Shanann's pregnancy. He was then formally accused of murder. Watts was arrested on August 15, 2018. Watts was also fired by the company on August 15, the day of his arrest. According to the arrest affidavit and footage from a security camera in the interview room, he failed a lie detector test and then confessed to killing his pregnant wife. He presented multiple different accounts of what happened the night of August 13, including that he and Shanann had got into a fight, with him revealing he was having an affair and wanted a divorce or threatening to take the kids away, and then Chris saying Shanann killed her daughters in retaliation. He also said once he had killed Shanann, he told his daughter she was sick and had to go to the hospital. But in 2019, Chris's story changed again. In a letter, he confessed the killings were premeditated rather than committed in a fit of rage as he had previously claimed. He said he attempted to cause Shanann to miscarry by slipping her oxycodone, as he thought it would make it easier to leave her. He then revealed he had attempted to kill both of his daughters before he strangled Shanann, an attack they survived, before taking them all out to the site where they ultimately died. On February 18, 2019, Watts gave what authorities believed to be his first full confession. According to interview recordings, 3 months after he was sentenced to life in prison, authorities visited Watts in prison. They told him his life and situation was unique, and they wanted to fully understand what happened, according to a written summary of the interview. An audio recording of the interview indicates Watts, then 33, had no hesitation about talking.
The girls are still in the truck.
Okay.
Did they ask you what you were doing, taking mommy out, or?
Yeah, I don't remember what I told them, but they did ask that.
What they say specifically?
It was more of like, what are you doing to mommy?
Okay.
He acknowledged his previous story of killing Shanann after she strangled the 2 girls was a lie, admitting to being solely responsible for the killings. In a chilling retelling of the gruesome crime, Watts said he strangled Shanann in their bed after he told her their marriage was over and she would never see their children again. He said his wife correctly suspected he was having an affair, but he did not admit to this before killing her. He told the investigators that Nicole Kessinger never asked him to get rid of his family, but their relationship may have contributed to his actions. After he strangled his pregnant wife, Watts said Bella, the older daughter, came into their bedroom clutching a blanket. She asked him what was wrong with her mum, with Watts claiming she wasn't feeling well. He said Bella watched as he wrapped the body in a bed sheet and began crying as he pulled it down the stairs of their home. Watts said he put her body on the floor of his truck's backseat, and when he went back inside, their youngest daughter, Celeste, was also awake. He said he put the girls in the backseat of the truck and they occasionally napped on each other's laps as he drove. Each child was holding a blanket, and Celeste had also brought a stuffed animal. Watts claimed he had no plan for his daughters, but drove to an oil worksite around 40 miles from the family's home in Frederick. He worked there as an operator for an oil and gas producer. Watts told authorities he pulled Shanann's body from the truck as the girls asked, "What are you doing to Mommy?" He then told how he went back to the truck, using Celeste's own blanket to smother her to death as Bella watched from the seat beside her sister. He put his youngest daughter's body in an oil tank before returning to the truck and using the same blanket to smother Bella, his eldest daughter. He told police her last words were "Daddy, no," as she struggled. He then said he put her body inside another oil tank before burying Shanann's body in a shallow grave nearby. He insisted he did not plan to kill his wife or children, saying, "If I was thinking, this wouldn't have happened." After Chris marked a photo of the oil field with the location of the bodies investigators drove out on August 16 at 11 p.m. They excavated the dirt where they found Shanann. Shanann was curled up as if just thrown in, said David Maloney, Colorado Bureau of Investigation Laboratory Manager at the Denver Forensic Science Laboratory. It was almost discarded like trash and then covered with dirt. However, investigators knew they weren't going to be able to retrieve the girls that night. They returned the next day to open up the tanks, revealing openings so small many questioned whether the girls would even fit in there. Until that is, they found some hair belonging to one of the girls. The tanks had to be drained so that the girls could be removed, with Celeste found first, still in her nightdress. Bella was found after the second tank was drained. On August 21, Watts was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, including an additional 1 count per child cited as death of a child who had not yet attained 12 years of age, and the defendant was in a position of trust, unlawful termination of a pregnancy. At a later hearing, his bail was set at $5 million, with him being required to put down 15% to be released. Sentences and agreements to plead guilty. Shanann's family requested that the district attorney not pursue the death penalty because they did not want any more fatalities. In addition, he was sentenced to 48 years for illegally ending Shanann's pregnancy and 36 years for 3 counts of tampering with a deceased person's body. He was moved to Waupun, Wisconsin's Dodge Correctional Institution, a maximum security facility, on December 5. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed our today's content. If yes, then please don't forget to provide your valuable feedback in the comments section below, and please subscribe to our channel for more enthralling content.
Let me ask you this, Chris. Is there anyone else we need to be looking for the deaths of your family? And here's his reply. Not that I'm aware of. He placed his hand on her throat and he began to squeeze. And in a violent struggle, she fought for her life. But she wasn't able to overcome the defendant. In a matter of 3 or 4 minutes, she was dead.
What if the person you thought you knew was living a lie so deep it could cost lives? Today we will uncover the chilling story of a man whose mask of deception led to an unthinkable tragedy. Christian Longo's life was a facade of perfection marred by deep financial troubles and deceit, which eventually led to a tragic outcome. Born on January 23, 1974 in Michigan, Longo grew up in a strict Jehovah's Witnesses family and married Mary Jane Barker when he was 19 and she was 25. The couple shared 3 children, Zachary, Sadie, and Madison.
They gave me an ultimatum at that point. They said I was still fairly adamant that I wanted to date Mary Jane, and they essentially said you can either live under our roof or you can date Mary Jane. And I chose to move out that next week.
Despite outward appearances, Longo's life was fraught with financial instability and fraudulent behavior. He struggled with massive debts driven by his desire to maintain an image of wealth. This included extravagant purchases and vacations funded by unethical means, such as writing bad checks, creating fake addresses, and even counterfeiting checks. The financial strain was coupled with Longo's dishonesty in other areas in his life, including his marriage. He had multiple affairs and was eventually ousted from his church community for his actions. The culmination of his spiraling deceit and financial ruin was moving his family from Michigan to Oregon, where he hoped to escape the consequences of his actions. However, the pressure only intensified, leading to the fateful events of December 2001, when Longo murdered his family in an attempt to cover up his failures and start anew. On the night of December 16, 2001, the tragic unraveling of the Longo family reached its horrifying conclusion in Newport, Oregon. The scene of events was both meticulously planned and ruthlessly executed by Christian Longo, who had spiraled into a deep vortex of deceit and financial ruin. As night enveloped their quiet neighborhood, Christian Longo's inner turmoil manifested into a dark and irreversible action. The evening began normally, but as his family settled in for the night, Longo's plan unfolded. First, he strangled his wife, Mary Jane, and their 2-year-old daughter, Madison, at their home. The brutality of these acts was stark, as he then placed their bodies into suitcases, weighed them with dumbbells before loading them into his car. But his grim task was not complete. Longo then drove his sleeping children, 4-year-old Zachary and 3-year-old Sadie, to the lit salt bridge. Under the cover of darkness, he attached rocks to their bodies with pillowcases and threw them into the cold waters of the Elsey River, ensuring they would not survive. The following morning, as Newport awoke to the light of a new day, the community would soon be shaken by the discovery of these horrendous acts. Longo, having committed the unfathomable crimes, tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. He engaged in everyday activities, even attending a work Christmas party and interacting with friends, all while his family's bodies remained hidden. The horrifying scene was a stark contrast to the normalcy of the previous day. The community was left reeling as the truth emerged, and the facade of the happy Longo family was shattered forever. The sun's rise did not just herald a new day, it cast light on a tragedy that would haunt their community for years to come. This moment marked the beginning of a larger investigation that would eventually lead to Longo's capture and conviction, unveiling the depths of his deceit and the coldness of his actions. After committing the murders on the night of December 16, 2001, Christian Longo's attempt to evade justice led him across international borders to Mexico. He fled the scene of his gruesome acts in Newport, Oregon, and by December 27th, he was recognized while hiding out at a hotel in Cancun. This marked the beginning of Longo's brief stint living under a new identity, as he assumed the persona of Michael Finkel, a former New York Times writer, a choice that would later add a bizarre twist to his narrative. Longo's days as a fugitive were filled with contradictions. Despite the brutal nature of his crimes, he attempted to blend into the tourist backdrop of Cancun, engaging in everyday activities and seemingly trying to adapt a normal life under his assumed identity. However, his past was quickly catching up with him. The international manhunt that ensued drew significant media attention, casting a spotlight on the urgent need to capture a man capable of such cold-blooded acts. The pursuit came to a close when Longo was apprehended on January 13, 2002, in the small town of Tulum, Queentown Rural, approximately 80 miles south of Cancun. He was captured without incident by Mexican authorities after being on the run for nearly a month. This capture was facilitated by the alertness of an American tourist who recognized him from wanted posters, as well as the diligent efforts of both American and Mexican law enforcement agencies. Longo's arrest not only marked the end of his flight from justice, but also highlighted the collaborative efforts across borders to bring a fugitive to justice. This dramatic conclusion of Longo's flight from the law brought relief to a global audience, and especially to the community in Newport. Shaken by the brutality of the crimes. But even thousands of miles away, the echoes of his actions reached the hands of justice, ensuring that Christian Longo would face the consequences of his horrifying acts. His capture and the details surrounding it remain a testament to the far-reaching impact of international law enforcement cooperation. Christian Longo's trial began in 2003 in the Lincoln County Circuit Court in Oregon. He faced multiple charges of aggravated murder for the deaths of his wife Mary Jane and their 3 children. During the trial, Longo's defense was a shocking claim. He suggested that his wife had killed 2 of their children in a fit of rage over their financial despair, and in a reactionary haze, he had killed her and their remaining child. This defense, however, did little to sway the jury. The prosecution presented a compelling case detailing Longo's history of deceit and financial instability, and pointed to the calculated manner in which the murders were executed.
He placed his hand on her throat and he began to squeeze. And in a violent struggle, she fought for her life. But she wasn't able to overcome the defendant. In a matter of 3 or 4 minutes, she was dead.
Evidence included Longo's subsequent flight to Mexico and his use of a false identity, all of which painted a picture of premeditation and guilt. After a closely watched trial, Longo was convicted on all counts and sentenced to death by lethal injection in April 2003, marking a swift and decisive conclusion to the legal proceedings. Following his conviction, Longo's life on death row at the Oregon State Penitentiary has been marked by unexpected developments, particularly concerning his interactions with the media and his proposals regarding organ donation. In 2011, Longo founded an organization named GAVE, which stands for Gifts of Anatomical Value from Everyone. advocating for the rights of death row inmates to donate their organs post-execution. This move sparked debate and media attention, juxtaposing his heinous crimes against his quest for redemption through organ donation. Longo's interaction extended into the realm of personal relationships when he struck up a correspondence with Michael Finkel, the former New York Times writer whose identity he had once stolen. This bizarre relationship was the subject of Finkel's memoir, True Story, which was later adapted into a film. These interactions highlight the complexity of Longo's character and his life post-conviction, as he navigates the consequences of his actions within the confines of death row. Chris Longo's trial and its aftermath have left an indelible mark on public consciousness. As we close this chapter on one of the most disturbing cases in recent memory, we encourage you to share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. What do you think drives a person to commit such heinous acts? Could anything have been done to prevent this tragedy? Join the conversations below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of criminal minds. Until next time, stay curious and vigilant as we continue to explore the mysteries of the human psyche together on this channel. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video.
A Monroe County jury determines Christopher Coleman murdered his wife and 2 little boys.
The verdict came on the 2nd anniversary of their killings.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's case, which is truly disturbing and inexplicable. A malevolent presence lurked in the shadows of a seemingly perfect relationship, leaving a trail of destruction and despair in its wake. Behind the facade of love and loyalty, a grim truth was revealed. The very people who had vowed to love and protect one another became the instruments of their own loved one's downfall. Unsuspecting and trusting, the victims fell prey to the unimaginable cruelty of that person who they truly trusted the most. Join me today as we delve into the heart-wrenching story of innocent lives that were tragically cut short by the very hands that they once held dear. Sherry was born on August 12, 1971 in Missouri, USA. She was raised in a nurturing and supportive family environment, which fostered a joyful and idyllic childhood. After completing her secondary education at a high school in Missouri, she proceeded to pursue a degree in early childhood education. Sherry Weiss and Chris Coleman crossed paths at a canine training seminar at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio in May 1997. At the time, Weiss, 21, was serving as an MP in the Air Force, while Coleman, 22, was a Marine. They began a relationship and soon discovered that Weiss was pregnant with their first child, Garrett. The couple got married shortly afterwards, and their second son, Gavin, was born about 2 years later. Chris Coleman was raised in Monroe County, Illinois, as the son of Ron and Connie Coleman, who were evangelical pastors. His upbringing was deeply influenced by his parents' religious beliefs and practices, which later shaped his worldview and relationships. Chris and Sherry, along with their sons, Gavin and Garrett, lived in a 2-story house on Robert Drive in Columbus, Illinois. Their home was just a short distance from Chris's parents' house in Chester. Their friends and neighbors often spoke of Chris and Sherry as an amazing couple, and with their children, they made a truly loving family. People admired them for their warmth and kindness, and their family was considered a shining example of happiness and unity. Joyce Meyer, a well-known Christian minister with a worldwide audience through her TV show and ministry, had a profound influence on Chris Coleman. He frequently attended her conferences and workshops, and his wife Sherry also found value in her teachings. Interestingly, Chris's parents, Ron and Connie Coleman, were pastors who had established a charismatic church in Illinois that shared Joyce Meyer's theological views. Chris would often share quotes and insights from Joyce Meyer's books and seminars, demonstrating the significant impact her teachings had on his life and beliefs. Joyce Myers appointed Chris to her security team, and he rapidly ascended to the position of personal bodyguard, discharging his responsibilities with unwavering dedication and loyalty. However, in mid-November 2008, an alarming email filled with profanities was sent to Chris Coleman, Joyce Meyer, and her son. By early January 2009, Coleman had decided to reach out to a neighbor who happened to work for the Columbia Police Department, Detective Sergeant Justin Barlow. He informed Barlow and local authorities about a menacing letter that had been left in his mailbox. The police agreed to increase patrols in the neighborhood, and Barlow took the initiative to install a security camera aimed at Coleman's mailbox. Unfortunately, neither the camera nor the additional patrols yielded any results. During this time, Sherry had confided in friends that Chris's behavior had changed, suspecting infidelity. She even shared with a friend, "If something happens to me, Chris is to blame," Towards the end of April, Chris Coleman contacted the local police again regarding another threatening note targeting his family. On the morning of May 5, 2009, Chris Coleman left his home in the 2800 block of Robert Drive to go to a gym in South St. Louis County. He called Sherry's mobile phone and left a message, then texted her again while he was at the gym, and called once more when he was on his way home. After not hearing from his wife, Chris subsequently contacted Detective Sergeant Justin Barlow and the Columbia Police Department, requesting that they check on Sherry and the boys. Barlow met a Columbia police officer in front of the Coleman residence, and they discovered that a basement window had been opened. They entered the basement and made their way through the house, finding spray paint on the walls with ominous messages in big red letters that stated, "I am always watching. You have paid and punished."
Manson style,
with ligature marks on their necks indicating that they had been strangled with a cord or rope. As the police were searching the house, Chris pulled into the driveway just before 7 a.m. Another officer had arrived and kept Chris outside the residence. Barlow and the other Columbia officer left the house and informed Chris that his family had died. Chris was brought to the Columbia Police Headquarters for questioning regarding his family's tragic deaths. Investigators had their suspicions about his involvement, especially after uncovering digital evidence from Sherry's phone and Chris's laptop that hinted at marital issues and a possible affair with a woman named Tara Lintz. As detectives delved deeper into the case, they discovered that Lintz was a friend of Sherry's who resided in St. Petersburg, Florida. Chris maintained that he and Lintz were just friends, but authorities in Florida were simultaneously investigating Lintz for her connection to Chris Coleman.
How long have you been in a relationship with Chris?
Since late November, early December.
What would you tell his wife when he was gone?
He would have just told that he was working.
So Sherry was not aware of the affair that you and him were having?
No. I know she suspected, but...
Shockingly, it was revealed that Chris had been having an affair with his wife's friend, meeting up in secret in various locations while he was away on business trips. The exchange of explicit texts, photos, and videos between the two further confirmed the illicit relationship. Detectives from the Major Case Squad built a case against Chris. Computer experts scrutinized his laptop, and handwriting analysis examined the threatening emails and notes. Forensic examiners reviewed police paperwork and autopsy reports. Evidence was found along Interstate 255, a route Chris frequently took. Cell phone tracking showed Chris took a different route home on May 5th. After a conference call with Dr. Michael Badwin, a renowned forensic pathologist who stated that Sherry and her children were likely killed before Chris left the house, police charged Chris with 3 counts of first-degree murder on May 19, 2009. Authorities alleged that Coleman staged the crime scene. Jurors were selected from Perry County to ensure an impartial trial. During the trial, prosecutors presented evidence pointing to Chris Coleman's motive for the murders. Dr. Bannon testified that Sherry and her children were likely killed hours before Chris left home that morning, and a computer forensic analyst revealed that the threatening emails sent to Chris were sent from his laptop using his login information. Law enforcement officials, including Justin Barlow, testified about the investigation. A detective found a receipt for red spray paint in Coleman's house, which was traced back to the hardware store. Tara Lintz, Chris's mistress, testified that Chris planned to leave his wife for her and had given her a promise ring. She said Chris had intended to serve Sherry with divorce papers on May 4th or 5th. The defense argued that someone had hacked Chris's computer and committed the murders. The trial began on April 25, 2011 in Waterloo, Illinois. After delays and attempts to relocate, Coleman did not testify during the 9th-day trial. Chris Coleman was sent to the Pontiac Correctional Center in Illinois in 2011, despite his request for a retrial being denied in June of the same year. He was later transferred to Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin in August 2011 due to safety concerns. In January 2015, a judge upheld his conviction and life sentence. He claimed he was framed and that the laptop linked to the threats was not in his possession at the time. His father, Pastor Ron Coleman, also maintained his son's innocence, emphasizing that the affair was not a motive for the tragic events. In April 2018, his legal representatives filed a motion for a new trial, citing mishandled evidence. A judge granted an evidentiary hearing in March 2019, but denied the appeal for a new trial in July 2020. The community was rocked by the tragic murder of Sherry Coleman and her 2 sons. The trial uncovered a tangled web of lies and treachery, leading to her husband, Chris Coleman, being convicted of the terrible crime. Despite his protests of innocence and efforts to overturn the verdict, Chris was ultimately sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The case stands as a stark reminder of the severe repercussions of domestic abuse and murder. Sherry's legacy endures through her loved ones, shedding light on the harmful impact of domestic violence. I hope you found this video informative and engaging. If you want more thought-provoking crime videos, please like, share, and subscribe to Jester's Crime Files. Thanks for watching, and please stay safe.